Hello and welcome to the next part of my Train Simulator Reskin tutorial series. So in this part we're going to take a look at how to create a custom installer which will allow users to easily install the reskin that you have just created. So what you are going to want to do is just create a temporary directory somewhere called First Great Western Green Door. I've created my downloads folder. You can create it on your desktop or wherever. And what I've done is I've copied one of my setup batch scripts into this folder, and basically I'm going to take you through exactly what the batch script does and how to modify it for us to be able to distribute our First Great Western Green Door reskin. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to mirror the directory structure of the Railworks assets folder. So what you're going to want to do is create a new folder called assets, and then what I'm going to do is open up the class 166 here in split screen. So what I'm going to do is just drag these each to one side, and then inside the assets I'm going to create a new folder which will be called Kuju, and inside there a new folder called Rail Simulator, and inside the Rail Simulator folder I'm going to create a preload folder, and as you can imagine, similar again, we'll create a folder for the Oxford Paddington route in there like so, and we're going to copy and paste our First Great Western Green Door bin into there like so. Back to Rail Simulator, we're going to now do the rail vehicles directory structure like so. Rail vehicles, diesel, like so, class 166, like so. And then we are going to copy and paste our First Great Western Green Door folder across into our temporary First Great Western Green Door location over here on the left. So now that we've copied over all of our First Great Western Green Door assets, if you like, we can now make a start on editing the setup.bat script. So if I right click that, edit with Notepad++, and you'll see I've just taken a copy of the setup bat script that I have for the class 166 reskin pack that I have available on my website. So what we're going to want to do is essentially modify this script for our Green Door First Great Western reskin. So what we can do, we can change the name to First Great Western Green Door like so, and what we can do then is basically I'll go through it from top to bottom. So what we do on line number 5 here is we run a registry query and we look for the railsimulator.com railworks entry in the registry, and there should be an install path parameter, and that parameter should contain the directory in which Train Simulator Railworks essentially is installed at. If that is successful, then we call set directory automatically. If it fails, so the error level, if that fails, then we call set directory manually. Essentially what the set directory automatically does is it goes through the Railworks registry entry looking for the install path parameter, and it sets this directory parameter to be equal to whatever the install path is. So essentially we have now this directory variable that now has the install path of Train Simulator, whether it's on F drive, C drive, or wherever it may be. If we couldn't find the Railworks registry entry, then we ask the user to set their directory manually, and so we just output a message saying enter Railworks directory path, and then we just say, for example, C program files, Steam apps, common railworks, and that then sets the directory property to be equal to whatever the user has entered after this sort of output message here. So either way, they can put in the directory. Automatically is obviously preferable if it finds it in the registry, but if not, the user still has the option to enter the directory manually. So once we've got this bit done, we simply echo, which is another word for essentially like output, print out to the terminal. We print out that we're installing content, please wait, and then we go to the install. So the install is where sort of all the magic happens, if you like. And what we do is for each of the reskins in the local folder that we just created in downloads, in this case, we basically copy the default class 166 or whichever 166 reskin that we based our reskin on, and we copy that, giving it the name of our reskin in our downloads folder. So essentially, if I drag this across and go split screen with this, what you'll essentially see is what we do in this case is we're going to want to copy the first Great Western folder, because that's the one that we copied and pasted to get our green door. So what we're going to want to do is just copy this assets path and update it. So we can simply replace this with the Kuju version. What we are then going to want to do is do the same thing over here. So we can replace the assets all the way to there with the Kuju version. And essentially what that means is it will copy the first Great Western folder here, and it will paste it, giving it a name of whatever it's found in our local downloads folder, which would be this here. So it basically copies the first Great Western and pastes it with the name of first Great Western green door. Essentially, this for loop essentially is how I have a custom installer set up to install multiple reskins in just one installation. In this case, it's only going to find that one single first Great Western green door, but if you had another one in here called first Great Western blue door, then it will essentially copy that first Great Western twice, calling it green door once and then calling it blue door once as well. So essentially what we're going to want to do now we've updated that line is just update this line here, because you'll see this points to obviously the class 4.4 version. So what we can do is again just replace this here with the assets Kuju rail simulator rail vehicles diesel class 166, like so, and that essentially correlates with assets Kuju rail simulator rail vehicles diesel class 166. So that's basically saying for every folder inside this class 166 folder, I want you to copy the first Great Western folder that you see in the Railworks directory, copy that folder and paste it with the name of the first Great Western green door, in this case, the name of the folder over here in our class 166 folder in downloads. You'll notice we've got a couple of parameters here at the end. This /xd means to exclude directory, and /xf means to exclude files. So we don't want, when we're copying this first Great Western folder, we don't want to copy the bin file or the DCSV file, because those are the ones that we have modified. And the excluding directories, generally, not always, but when you are copying from a default, you'll generally find directories that you don't end up editing, such as bogies, lights, simulation. If you go into this default folder, if we were using this one, you'll see we got bogies, destinations, lights, simulation. So depending on which folder you use as the base for your reskin, depends on what directories you'll want to exclude. If you use the default, then you want to exclude bogies, light, simulation, Obviously, if you've edited any of those files, then you want to include them, but generally those are the ones, like I was saying earlier on in the bin files, you don't tend to touch bogies, for example, or the lights. You just tend to leave those as the defaults. Because we've used the First Great Western folder as our template, you'll notice that none of those folders appear there. So we can quite simply just get rid of this excluding directories bit, like so, and just leave it to exclude the bin files and the DCSV files. What we can then do, line 32 essentially, is do the same again. We're going to want to copy the Kuju directory and overwrite like so, and the same thing over here, like so. Basically what this line is saying is copy our local version of the First Great Western Green Door and paste it into the Railworks directory of the class 166. So this is basically the step which just copies and pastes the downloaded class 166 directory into the Railworks class 166 directory. And then finally, the last but not least, we just do the copy and paste on the preload. So we do that like so. And essentially what that is saying is copy the preload folder that's downloaded and paste it into the Railworks preload folder. So line 32 covers the rail vehicles, and line 33 covers the preload essentially. So now we've got that all set up. That is our custom automated installer now set up and good to go. So we can now close that, close down Notepad++. And what we're going to want to do now is remove the files that we don't want to distribute online, such as those geo files which I mentioned earlier on. So if we come into our First Great Western Green Door that we've got in our downloads folder ready to be zipped up and distributed, you'll notice we've still got geo files, etc. So what we can do is come to the root here. We do a search for .go.pcdx, and you'll see here are the 3 geo files. We can delete those because we don't want, as I was saying, to distribute those files. No items match your search, that's good. The .dds texture file, we don't need to distribute that because that's just our file that was being edited. The only files that we want to, text files that we want to distribute are the tg.pcdx files. So we can get rid of the DDS file, like so. Just refresh there, no items match your search. And what we can also do to make the installation, to make the download a lot quicker, we can remove all of the texture files that we didn't edit. In order to do this, you can go to sort by date modified, and you see here date modified the 10th of August at 10:19. So this is the texture file that we edited. We want to keep that one there, but you'll notice all of these other texture files are just the defaults which can be found inside the First Great Western folder, such as the DMOCL and textures. All of these we haven't touched. So when we're copying the First Great Western folder and pasting it as First Great Western Green Door, it will copy all of those texture files by default, and we don't actually need to overwrite those. So what we can do is all of these texture files we can delete from the version that we're going to distribute online, and that will save quite a lot of space, especially with the larger trains, the more recent DLCs which have much larger texture files. This will save a lot of space and make the download a bit quicker for end users when they're downloading your reskin. So we've just edited that one file, which means that that's the only file that we want, only texture file that we want to be distributed. What we can now do is just run through and check that everything looks okay. So we've got assets, Kuju, Rail Simulator, preload, Oxford Paddington, there's our preload, which is good. We can then go into rail vehicles, diesel, class 166, First Great Western Green Door. In here we have the local information. Like I was saying, in game, if you've taken a screenshot of the locomotive, then you'll want to replace the image.png with your, for example, Green Door version, or whichever other version that you've created. I will just leave it as the basic for now. Inside the textures, you'll find that we've just got those First Great Western digits.bin, and you'll see we've then got the main bin file which we edited with all the names, etc., and also the numbers which you may have edited if you've changed the company of the train, for example. DMOS file folder, you'll notice that we've just got the bin and the DCSV, no geo files, those have all been deleted as unnecessary. Same thing in the MOS, we've got the bin and the DCSV, and in the textures, again this folder is empty because we're going to copy the textures from the First Great Western folder in the Railworks installation. The only texture file that we do have is the 166_main, and essentially that is the only texture file that we edited earlier on in the series. So now that's all done, we've got the assets folder and directory all set up correctly, removed all of the redundant files that we don't need to distribute to save space, and we've also got our setup bat file all created and ready to go to be distributed. So we can close that now, and then what we can do, just delete that old setup bat file, right click First Great Western green door here, 7-zip, add to archive, hit OK, and that will now compress down, and what we have here is a zip folder with our First Great Western green door reskin, which is now ready to be uploaded online for other users to be able to download. One, click the setup bat to install, and then drive your reskinned train in game. So that zip folder, like I say, that is, you can now upload that to a file sharing site or wherever you upload reskins to, and that is then ready to be downloaded by other users for them to be able to drive in Train Simulator. I hope you found this episode useful, going through creating the automated installer. You're more than welcome, of course, to set it up in the manual way and have users manually copy and paste the geo files, whichever you're more comfortable with. The automated installer is very useful if you create more than one reskin in the one download, because it saves on a lot of copying and pasting and a lot of time for the end users using your reskins. So thank you very much for watching. See you next time.